Hey, what's up guys? Brian Kelly here from Zombie Guitar. This video is in response to a question that I got in the Zombie Guitar members Facebook group the other day, and this is about the Eric Clapton song, Nobody Knows When You're Down and Out. So let me read you the question, then I'll read you my response to that question, and then we'll kind of dive into this song and what's going on.
When you're down and out,
Alright, so the question is, okay, so how do you solo over Clapton's Nobody Knows When You're Down and Out? A video would be great. There are tons of songs where the 3 and 6 chords are major. Alright, so my response was, I just listened to it. It's in the key of C major / A minor, but the 2, 3, and 6 chords have been made major, or if played in their 7th form, dominant 7th chords, and super common. We'll talk all about that in this video. These are the out-of-key chords that are used in the progression. Therefore, since we know our key, we know what our primary soloing framework is, which is the A minor pentatonic scale with the addition of the blue note. I don't really think of the blues scale as a different scale. I just think of it as the minor pentatonic scale with the blue note added. And then for the out of key chords, you just target the notes that make those chords out of key. All right. And that's pretty much it, you know. So this is, I'm not going to say it's basic stuff, but if you understand the fundamentals, like you understand what a key is, what chords go in a key, and then understand how to identify out-of-key chords, and then target the notes that make those out-of-key chords out of key. If you understand that fundamental stuff, this really is not that difficult. That's why I'm always stressing the fundamentals. Know your fundamentals, know what makes up a key, know all that stuff, and then you can kind of make these little tweaks and get these cool little bluesy sounds that Clapton does in this song. All right, so the very first thing that you want to do anytime you're analyzing a solo or anytime you're analyzing an improv or something is you want to look at the rhythm section. You want to look at what the rhythm chords are doing, because that's going to give you all the information as to what you as the lead guitar player should be doing. A good lead guitar player is following the chords. So that's what's going on here. So let's start out there. So this is an 8-bar blues progression. The whole progression lasts 8 bars. Here it is right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 7, 2, 3, 4, 8, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Okay, and then starts back over. All right, so I know that looks like a million chords, but really this is just the key of C major, and then the chords that are your minor chords. If you use your circle of fifths, you have your 3 major and your 3 minor chords found in this particular key. You have your 3 chords that are in the inner circle. Those are your minor chords found in this key. You have a D minor, you have an A minor, you have an E minor. Those chords have just been made major. And that's super common. You're going to see this all the time. You have a key-based chord progression, and they just take the minor chords of the key and they make them major. It gives a bluesier sound. And then if you don't just want to play those chords in their triad form, you don't just want to play A major, D major, E major, you want to play them in their 7th form, the 4-note form of those chords. More often than not, those are going to be made into dominant 7th chords, not major 7th chords. That would be the other type of 7th. Dominant 7th chords. This is super, super common for blues. So really we just have a chord progression that's in the key of C major, and then any chords that are the minor chords of the key, we just made them into dominant 7th chords. Super common stuff. With the exception, there is that D minor chord, which is one of the chords that is in the key. That chord occurs in this progression a few times, and it's just left minor. All right. Then you have that 1 F sharp diminished chord. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But that's the overall gist of this. All right, so you know what your key is. It's the key of C major. It's the key of A minor. Your scale or framework, therefore, is the C major scale, which is the same notes as the A minor scale. This is blues that we're talking about, so instead of playing like the full diatonic scale, the full 7-note diatonic scale, usually go with the pentatonic instead, the 5-note pentatonic scale. This is all fundamental stuff, all right? So if you're not following me this far of the video, I don't know, you can keep watching the video, but it's going to be much, much easier if you know the fundamental stuff. This is basic stuff I'm talking about. We know our key. We're not playing the full diatonic scale, we're just playing the pentatonic scale. So A minor pentatonic. You want to add some little, extensions. I call these the upper and lower extensions. A little piece of pentatonic position number 2, a little piece of pentatonic position number 5. I talk about that all the time in a lot of my videos. It's just the A minor pentatonic scale, or the C major pentatonic scale, whatever you want to call it. It's the same 5 notes. Then you have that little blue note in there. All right, that's like your blues scalar framework. We know what our key is, pentatonic scale of that key, add the blue note. That's going to cover most of what is going on here. Then we just have to address these out of key chords. You have these out of key chords. So what makes those chords out of key? Those are going to be the notes that you target when those chords are occurring in the rhythm section. So we have an A7 chord. If it was just an A minor 7 chord, it would be in key. We wouldn't have any out of key notes to target, but it's an A dominant 7 chord or an A major chord if just played in triad form. You have a C sharp. All right, so a C sharp is going to be a note that you might want to target over that chord. For the D7 chord, that's the other out of key chord that's happening here. If it was just a D minor or D minor 7 chord in key, nothing out of key to target, but it's a D major chord or a D dominant 7 chord, one note that's out of key, F sharp. So over that particular chord, you might want to target the F sharp note. And then you have the E dominant 7 chord, or the E major chord if just played in triad form. The note that makes that chord out of key is the note G sharp. So those are going to be some notes of interest that you may want to add over those particular chords to chord tone target for those chords. Basically, he starts out the solo. He goes like this. All right, so what is this right here? That's a C major chord. The first chord of the chord progression is a C major chord. So he starts out, and then the next chord is that E dominant 7 chord. That's the E major chord right there. You have your G sharp right here. He's really just doing this. So chord tone of the C major chord, chord tone of the E major chord or E dominant 7 chord, the G sharp, that specific note that makes that chord out of key, and then that's the note A, because the next chord in the progression is an A chord. Back to just pentatonic. Alright, so it's just that beginning is just chord tone targeting over the C major chord, over the E major chord, and then over the A chord. Alright, basic chord tone targeting stuff there. And then resorting to pentatonic licks, because the primary soloing framework is the A minor pentatonic scale. It then moves on to the D minor chord. Now the D minor chord is not an out of key chord, it's an in key chord. Now this chord, if you just want to remain pentatonic, that's fine, but Clapton kind of targets one specific note that makes the D minor chord a D minor chord, which is the note F. All right, so a D minor chord is the notes D, F, and A. It's that third that really differentiates between a major chord and a minor chord. So the next part that Clapton does, he really kind of highlights that note F, which is right here, 6th fret of the B string. So D minor chord's playing. It's a pretty sad chord. The reason it's sad and pretty is because of that specific note. He chord tone targets that specific note, the note F. And then he comes down here and does something. Again, here's that F right here. And so we have our primary soloing framework the whole time. This note F is not part of the pentatonic scale, but it is part of the key. So so it gets that F in there over the D minor chord. And then for this next part, he now utilizes the blue note. So remember, when we're playing blues, or if you're soloing over a blues type of progression, the minor pentatonic scale is your primary soloing framework, and then you just add that blue note, and they kind of go hand in hand. I don't really think of the blues scale as a different scale together. It's just the pentatonic scale with the blue note added. So instead of playing, it's So he adds it right here. So he's just doing pentatonic stuff, but adding in that little blues note in that, bluesy manner, I guess. So the chords that are happening over this particular part of this solo is an F major chord, which is part of the key, and then to an F sharp diminished chord, and then it goes to a C. Now, when you see a diminished chord, I've made lessons about diminished chords in the past. I'll link you to one of those. That's like an in-between chord. When you have an in-key chord followed by another in-key chord, for example, the F major is an in-key chord, and then the C major is also an in-key chord. So it's going from an F major. So you want something in between, you can usually throw a diminished chord in there, and that's exactly what's happening here. So it's just playing an F major to an F sharp diminished to a C major. It's just like a little transitional chord. And then back to this A7, which has been happening all along. And he does do one interesting thing over this A dominant 7 chord, because remember, the reason that the A dominant 7 chord, or if you're just looking at it as a triad, it's just an A major chord. The thing that makes that particular chord out of key is the note C sharp. And that's what he's doing right here. He's going. Super common. I talk about that in a lot of my blues theory lessons. The way to kind of get that major minor hybrid sound is to get both the minor third and the major third in there. So if this is the A minor pentatonic scale, your minor third here would be like right here. But if you want to get that major sound in there, you just raise that a half step to make it a major third. So he throws that in there as well. Basically, if it was the in-key chord, if it was an A minor chord, it would be this. Or if it was the in-key chord played in 7th form, it would be an A minor 7 chord. But it's not, it's an A dominant 7 chord. So you have this note. That's the note C sharp. That's the note that makes that chord out of key. So C sharp. C sharp. Here's your little soloing framework, your A minor pentatonic scale. There's that C sharp. And then this last part, these last 2 bars, this is the one and only time that he actually switches the scale. The entire improv for the whole first 6 bars has been one scale. It's not a different scale for each chord. It's just been the A minor pentatonic scale, and then he's just throwing in those flavor notes. He's throwing in the notes that are out of key on a per chord basis to highlight those out of key chords. He's playing like the C sharp over the A dominant 7 chord, or he's playing the G sharp over the E dominant 7th chord, or he's playing the note F over the D minor chord. That's actually in key, but he's just kind of chord tone targeting these to bring out the flavor of these chords. But it's just been one scale the whole time. But these last 2 bars, he actually switches up the scale. He switches it up to the C minor pentatonic scale. So it was the C major pentatonic scale the whole time. Remember, C major and A minor pentatonic, it's the same thing, A minor pentatonic, or C major pentatonic. All right, whatever you want to call it A minor pentatonic, call it C major pentatonic. That's been the primary soloing framework up until now. At the very end, he switches it up to the C minor pentatonic scale. So he goes something like, again, throwing in that little minor third, major third thing, that blues trick. So if you have a G dominant 7th chord, it resolves beautifully to a C major chord. Tension. Release. But dominant seventh chords also resolve beautifully to minor chords as well. That's the way that, you can switch keys, you can switch to minor keys and all that stuff. So G dominant 7 chord will also resolve to a C minor chord if you want it to. Tension. Release. So by him playing the C minor pentatonic there, he's kind of implying that it's the G dominant 7th chord is resolving to a C minor instead of a C major. He's implying that it's resolving to the key of C minor. It's not really doing that, and the chord progression is actually going back to a C major. So he's basically just implying that this is resolving to C minor. Tension. Release. But the actual chord progression says otherwise. The actual chord progression starts back over on a C major. It's just another way to get that major-minor hybrid sound going on. So the rest of the solo just uses the A minor pentatonic scale, which is the same as the C major pentatonic scale. It just uses that one key scale as its primary soloing framework the whole time, except for that very end there, that G dominant 7, implying that it's moving to a C minor. He says, okay, let's do a C minor pentatonic scale to kind of, I don't know, just make things sound interesting, make things sound bluesy. Blues is just all major minor hybrid stuff. So if you understand the fundamentals, this isn't really that hard. It is a little notch up from just basic, all the chords are in key. But if you understand what a key is, you understand what chord tone targeting means, what the purpose of chord tone targeting is to highlight the underlying chords. If you understand all that fundamental stuff, then this is just kind of like turning it up a notch. That's really all that's happening here. It's not that much harder than the basic fundamental stuff. But if you don't know the fundamentals, then yes, it's going to be very difficult. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.